こんにちは。Hello.
I'm Keiko and I'm 9.
I'm Mark Kubumatsu.
Inorganic filters are things like zinc oxide and
But when you get a disease, what they love in Russia.
Barbell Radio.
Well, today I'm speaking to an interesting guest. Nothing to do with powerlifting today. Not an athlete, not a coach, but he's someone that I've known for a very long time personally. My second brother from another mother, mate from the Down Under, Australia. I had to get him onto the show today because he really has an interesting story and a very different perspective on life. And maybe someone can even, benefit or even relate to the things that he says.
Hope so.
Yeah, so Harrison Green, thank you for coming down to Yokosuka today.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, Cannon.
Okay, so maybe give the listeners a brief introduction of yourself and why you're in Japan.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, we grew up together, so we've known each other for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm friends with your older brother.
Yes.
We've been, what? How long? Since what?
Since
you were like 10 or something?
I was in primary school.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been maybe when I was like, maybe 10.
Shit, yeah. Been a long time.
Yeah, 14 years.
Yeah, God. Yeah, I mean, well, why am I in... I mean, yeah, so my name's Harry. Old friend of Cannon and her brother.
Mm-hmm.
And, God, yeah, we're from the Gold Coast. We grew up on the coast together.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, we've known each other our whole lives. And, yeah, I mean, how I actually ended up in Japan is basically... I was on the Gold Coast, where we grew up. And, I got involved in, definitely the wrong side of life.
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot of partying and a lot of stupid shit. And basically what ended up happening with me is I was running my business for a few years on the Gold Coast. And
What kind of business was that?
I was running a IT business in Tugun on the Gold Coast. So, yeah, I mean, I was at university beforehand. And then my dad was basically running this shop. He wanted to retire
Right.
and go back to South Africa. And so I ended up dropping out of university and taking on the shop.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I mean, yeah, for the first... Fuck. Sorry, it's really hot.
It's hot.
Yeah, for the first, year, it was really good, making good money.
Mm-hmm.
My dad went back, so it was my own little gig. I was, 20. And, yeah, I mean...
How old are you now?
I'm 25. So nearly 26.
Mm-hmm.
25 and a half.
Damn.
So, yeah, I mean, I got the shop when I was 20. So the
Right.
business when I was 20. And, yeah, I mean, I was just an irresponsible little cunt, really. I mean, I'd never had a real job before. I was
Right.
at university, and I was always scraping by on Centrelink and just doing that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got that job, with my dad, and he went back to South Africa, and it was basically just, I had the reins to it. I could do whatever I wanted. And, I mean, I definitely put my heart and soul into it while I was at work.
Because
And-
definitely did sound like you were doing very well for a little while.
Yeah, no, I was... I mean, even when I'll get into this later, but
Mm-hmm.
I managed to keep the business going reasonably well the whole time. And, I mean, I don't really know... I mean, when I reflect on it and I look back on it, basically what I think happened is I was, immature. I all of a sudden, instead of getting, $600 off Centrelink a fortnight, I was all of a sudden able to take, $1,500 a week for myself in
Right.
wages. And I mean, I shouldn't have been taking that much, but whatever. I did, and I managed to, be able to maintain it.
Yeah.
And I just thought I was a sick cunt. So I just started spending a lot of my money on partying.
Right.
So go Monday to Friday, we'd work hard, and then we'd go out and, it happened really, really quickly. So, the first 6 months of having the business, I was, really dedicated to running it, and or whatever. Then it kind of got to my head, you're hanging around a lot of people at that age, everyone's just starting to go out,
Right.
experimenting and
I
all
mean,
that
it
sort of
is
stuff.
the age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of our friends were doing it.
Yep.
We'd get on the drugs, whatever, party hard and stuff. And I had enough money to maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
And it pretty much just spiraled out of control. It went from just normal weekends and then just to really heavy weekends. And then I had enough money and I paid for people to come out and party with me. And
Right.
I was just being a fucking idiot. And pretty much what happened, and I mean, I'd like to talk about the dangers of drugs later, but I mean, I know a lot of people that still, party and whatever, that's up to them, and party hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I went out one weekend, and I couldn't sleep, on the Sunday, I just couldn't sleep. I've been on it pretty hard all weekend, and whatever, got up, no sleep, went to work. And then I came home that Monday night and I went to sleep and I had a seizure in my bed.
Right.
And I woke up and I just didn't know anything anymore. I didn't know who I was. Didn't know where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it felt like someone had, like, got, like, an ice pick and just, like, smashed me in the head with it and it was just stuck in there. It's hard to explain.
Mm.
But, yeah, I just didn't know what was going on. And I got up and I could still, like... I don't know how to say this, but you know how you know things, like you understand something, and then you mentally understand. You know the difference between kind of intellectually understanding something, like, okay, the constellations of the stars. You know what you can repeat it, but you don't know what it really is.
Right.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
like knowing versus like intellectually
It's
understanding.
a different kind of level
Yeah.
of understanding.
Well, it's a feeling like you know you're here right now, right?
Right.
That was just removed completely. So I could still like talk and I could drive my car and I could like talk to people and stuff. But like it was horrifying. Like the anxiety obviously that comes with that is just, it was unbelievable. So I literally woke up one day after living my life for 21 years. I just turned 21. And it was just my whole sense of just everything was just gone.
Right.
But I mean, pretty much what ended up happening is I got rid of the business a few years later and, I was just a mess. I was a mess for years. Like it went on for years. And then eventually, a family member of mine died and I had to be there for my family and I was using alcohol and Valiums and all that sort of shit to deal with it. And then I just got sober and then I basically that was 2 years ago, and I just made it my absolute goal to just find at least some sort of like peace to be able to deal with that. And I've gotten to a point where I'm far beyond just being like, I can tolerate life. I'm very, very happy and I'd love to be able to share with anybody out there that goes through anything like that.
And
a way to get out of it.
what brings you to this
Japan.
country? Yeah, specifically. Because I remember you learning Japanese. When
at school, when we were at school.
Yeah.
I did Japanese at school.
But it's just like thinking about it, it's just crazy that you're actually like here with speaking to me right now. It's insane.
It's sick, eh?
Yeah.
I'm happy. I mean, it's awesome. We're here together, like adults now.
Yeah.
It's great.
So just something that you can kind of like, well, you do have my brother.
Yeah.
And maybe that was one of the reasons why you were like, okay, I'm gonna go to Japan.
Definitely.
Because it's completely different, you know, like Australia,
Yeah.
Japan. Like you wouldn't really think of going to somewhere
For
that's
sure.
not an English-speaking country to
yeah.
start with.
Well, I'll tell you why I actually came here. So basically, how it happened I got my shit together, and I really was pushing to like get better. I was sober, like completely no drinking, nothing, and I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, it had been such a long time since I'd felt any joy, and I was in Sydney living, and I'd got myself somewhat together, and I was like, I just want to go and enjoy life because I haven't enjoyed it in years. It's been horrible for years.
Well, it kind of does sound like you have enjoyed life when you were out partying, but it wasn't for the enjoyment. It was more of like an escape. Or
No, it was just straight up self-medication. There was no enjoyment from that moment where that happened to me, or I did that to myself, until it was 3 years of like hell. And I would drink and I'd socialize because it was like, it gave me some sort of feeling of normal. The only time I ever felt normal was when I was like super drunk.
Right.
So it wasn't like an addiction necessarily to alcohol. It was just, it was too much. So I would just drink myself stupid. And then, I got over that. I'd sorted myself out. And then I was like, I want to go and enjoy my time somewhere and do something fun. Because I haven't been able to mentally enjoy anything in years. And they had a working holiday thing. And I was like, dude, I'm going to go. I was working. I had a decent job in Sydney actually. And I was like, I'm going to save all this money and I'm just going to go to Japan for 3 months and just chill.
Yep.
And then I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do a working holiday and see what happens. And then now I'm here and, getting married and all sorts of shit's going on.
Yeah, and you got a ring on your finger and everything. It's insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, my life has done an absolute, 180. It's, couldn't be happier.
I don't know, I think we will be talking stuff about like like mental stuff, maybe a little bit about drugs and maybe a lot of things that I haven't spoken about in the podcast. But just a quick disclaimer, it's not a medical advice. We're just going to be talking about some experiences. And
definitely not medical advice.
No professional advice, but maybe someone can really relate. Don't know.
I hope so. That's the reason I'm doing it.
So, you used to be an athlete, is that correct?
Yeah, I was a long time ago.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up doing gymnastics, so did that for about 10 years, and I was in the state teams and won a few. I never won a state title, but I mean, won a few regional titles, and then went into the state competition, and then went into the national competition.
Right. From what age was that?
So I started when I was like 6, and then I finished up when I was in my teens. I can't really remember.
Going into high
Yeah,
school.
I was already in high school. But, what was I? Oh, I don't know. It was a long time ago. It was
Yeah.
around that time, though. And when, like, gymnastics was getting... You know, like, with gymnastics, you need to be, like, at a top level by 14. Around that age, 15, 14. Especially girls, like women.
Yeah.
They're like in the Olympics when they're, like, 13.
Yeah.
It's mental. So,
Yeah.
I was getting to that point. And, yeah, I mean... Basically, in Australia back then, I don't know how it goes now, but... Yeah, I mean, once you knew that you were going to try and go to the Olympics, you pretty much go to this school in Brisbane and you do like 3 hours of school a day and then it was just training.
Right.
And I was sort of at that point where we were talking about it and my mum was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And then I didn't really know if I wanted to like commit myself to that.
I mean,
you don't
who
even...
really does
Yeah.
really, when you're that age, right?
For sure. I mean, you don't even finish high school. It's like you only go to the legal requirement of where you're like legally obliged to go to school.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that's over, you stop going. So you don't get year 12, nothing. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, ultimately I was like, nah, I just didn't
I
do it.
understand, like, you know, like being offered something like that, you're pretty much set for life, like career-wise. But imagine you, for example, like getting hurt or something like that.
Yeah.
Getting injured.
For sure.
And then what happens then?
I don't know. I mean, I think you're just out on your ass.
Yeah.
Like, and in Australia, it's not like America. In America or even Japan, you can get like sponsored. People make money, you know, doing it. And in Australia, it was always sort of like a rich kid sport. I don't know what the scene is now or whatever, but
Yeah.
when I was younger, it was like a rich kid thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a rich kid, but like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like all the kids that just, you know, it was very like higher echelon of society that would do it. So, and there was no like sponsorship or money in it really.
Right.
It was just people did it. It was like playing polo, I guess, with fucking horses and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just never... Yeah, I decided to finish that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never went any further with it. But I think doing that from a young age or any sport or any activity that requires you to, like, push yourself, yeah, it definitely gives you a discipline that I've definitely taken into my
Okay.
older years with me. Like, an ability to, like, something to be difficult
Yeah.
and then to just continually, like, go at it and just know that if you just keep happening and keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you will eventually snap through the little,
Oh.
you know, the break, the little whatever boundary or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, because that is another level of dedication. Like gymnastics, you got to be training all the time, right?
Yeah, it was hectic. I mean, I was like 11 and you're doing like, it was 4 days a week from what I remember for 4.5 hours each day. So 4 days, what's that? 18 hours a week.
Yeah.
It's like a part-time job on top of school and you're like 11. You know, you're like a kid, you know what I mean? And I didn't always hate it, but I remember going like, you're tired and shit. I mean, you're in school and that, but you're a kid.
And
And then you get out and you get
exactly.
home at like 9:30 at night and yeah, I don't know. It was fun though. I loved it. And like overall I really liked it.
Yeah,
It was
and
fun.
it benefited you. I mean,
For sure.
Oh, hold on. Oh, and also like you can still do back salts and stuff like
Yeah.
that too. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, that's
Thanks, brother.
awesome.
Mm.
No, I remember you. I
coffee.
remember you telling me like whenever you got super drunk,
Yeah.
you would do like back salts, and then I
Yeah.
remember seeing you with like your toes are broken or something.
Oh yeah.
Crazy days.
Yeah,
Huh?
a lot of that nonsense went down, didn't it? Wasn't yeah.
So I think like when maybe I do have a few American listeners, maybe the whole idea of partying, quote unquote partying in Australia and partying in the States is somewhat maybe very different actually.
Yeah.
What was like the partying scene like? I mean, I know a little bit, but I
Yeah.
didn't get in it as hard as you did.
Yeah.
Maybe explain like what did you guys used to do? Like, do you used to go out like clubbing? Like, what if you were underage? Like, what did you used to do?
I mean, I was like in Australia. It's you drink when you're 18,
yeah.
and I was already 18 in high school,
Mm.
so I could buy booze and shit. And like I know in America it's 21, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, like I think everybody's like parents and stuff. You're kind of like, okay, you're 2 years under the legal limit now. It's like sort of okay.
Yeah.
So in Australia, you're drinking and shit. Like we were drinking, like properly when we were 14.
Mm.
Like every weekend. Like my mum didn't like it necessarily, but like we just sneakily do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
people, I remember like at school when we were kids, like people were smoking weed and shit like 13,
Yeah.
14 and
Yeah.
like you'd tell your mum you want to go, you know, like be back by 10 o'clock at night and you get fucking hammered
Yeah.
and then come home. You know, like it was already happening at that age.
The question was like, it was not like, do you smoke it? It was like, where do you smoke
Yeah,
weed?
yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I guess it all started though, like we started smoking weed in grade 8.
Yeah.
And I never really liked it, but I used to just do it because like my friends did it.
Mm.
And then by 14 we're drinking. And then it was, for me, it pretty much stayed alcohol until I was older. Like I remember in like, you know, senior year, you know, like the 12th grade. But I mean, everyone was smashing all the heavier drugs by that point, in my grade anyway.
Yeah.
People were doing ecstasy and we call them pingers in Australia. But everyone was getting on the pingers and shit.
Yeah.
By year 12, for sure. I didn't do it. I just stayed on the alcohol. And
Yeah.
I loved just getting drunk. And then, yeah, as we got into university, I was still pretty much just alcohol.
Yep.
And then, you know, weed and stuff too, a little bit. And then, I don't really know when it got really full on, but I remember a lot of my friends were getting into the drugs, and I was one of the earlier ones to get into it, like MDMA and all the party shit. And we'd go clubbing
Yeah.
and, like, eat MDMA and, like, go crazy and whatever, and then probably keep going into the next day. And it just kind of got gnarlier and gnarlier.
Yeah.
Like, you go, like, it used to be like, oh, we'd think we were being naughty and go out on, like, a Thursday night when we had uni and, you know, drink, like, $3 drinks or whatever they had. And then, within a year or so, we were, like, you know, you'd get cocaine, you'd be spending, like, $500 or $600 in a
Just
weekend.
escalates,
yeah,
right?
it escalates. It escalated heaps. And then, yeah, I really, yeah. I
And
don't know.
especially starting from such a young age, you know, drinking from when you're like 13, 14, right?
Yeah.
And like, you get used to alcohol. When you get used to alcohol, you start smoking weed. When you're like smoking weed on the regular now, like you want another new stimulus. And like, by that time, maybe you're like 18 and 19, and that's when you like want to do some crazy shit, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it doesn't really like add up well in the end.
No, not at all. And you, like, when it becomes normal to you, like, you know, when people are doing cocaine, like, you don't just, like, turn 18 and be like, I'm just going to go do cocaine on its own.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm going to go sit in a fucking park and snort cocaine by myself. Like, it just does,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely an escalation thing, and it becomes normal, and then you add another drug to it, and then, like, before you've done it, everyone's like, oh my God, what are we doing?
And
And
that's
then-
before the mental maturity kicks
Yeah.
in too. Like, you're not mature enough, so
sure.
you're not really like thinking what's the best for you long term.
Absolutely. You're just doing whatever the fuck happens in front of you. Like, it's just whatever comes up, you're just going to do it. And not everyone's like that, thank God. But, yeah, if you're young, you're stupid, you want to fit in with what people are doing, it's just all that bullshit. And then once it becomes normal to you, it doesn't seem as hectic anymore. So you don't look at those drugs and be like, that's actually a seriously fucking dangerous thing to be participating in.
Yeah.
You're like, I do it every weekend, so it's whatever. And then someone will offer you something more dangerous or whatever. It doesn't necessarily get, like, worse forever.
Yeah.
But, like, you normalize participating in dangerous behavior. And I see a lot of young people doing it. I still see a lot of my friends getting involved in it. And,
Yeah.
like, they'll justify it, and, you know, people will, till the end of time, justify their own behavior and look at other people and go, well, I didn't do this and I didn't do that, so therefore it won't happen to me. But, I mean, we can get into some horror stories, and we'll do that later or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're playing with fire when you're playing with drugs. It's that simple. And
you don't even realize at times when you are escalating.
exactly. 100%. People just talk a lot of shit. So people will, seriously, it comes down to that. Like, I don't do it this much. And it's just like justification, drug addict kind of behavior.
Right.
But, like, luckily most people can keep it to the weekend or whatever. But you are seriously playing. You don't know where that shit comes from. And I remember when people used to tell me this, I'd go, oh, fuck off. You know, whatever. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. Like, I've taken it this many times and I've been fine. And, you know, you make up stories as to why it's okay for you to do it. And you hear something bad happening to somebody and you just say, oh, it wouldn't happen to me. But I literally watched a video. Maybe it was like, I remember this just before I, like, lost it. And this dude was like, he ate an ecstasy pill.
Yeah.
And it did something to his brain. And, like, he couldn't talk. He's, like, stuttering and shit.
Just once.
Just once. Or, I mean, he probably was partying a bit and stuff.
Right.
But whatever. He took this one thing and it reacted badly with him. And he was just, it sounded like he had, like, I don't know, Tourette's or something. You know, he's like, oh, like, he was twitching. And I remember watching it and going, oh, what, like, yeah, fucking, how unlikely is that? And then it happened to me as well. And yeah,
And it's definitely something to do with law enforcement in Australia, don't you think? Because I know that in Japan, like, if you're caught with anything, if you're caught with drugs, you're in a lot of trouble. Like, you're probably going to jail for that, like, quickly. But, like, in Australia, if you're caught with weed or something, they give you a fine, or, like, they take you in, and it's not even a big deal. And some people say that's good because, you know, you let people be and then they learn for themselves.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, hearing stories from you, and I know there are a lot of drugs in Australia, it's not working. That kind of law enforcement is not really working to reduce drug use.
I mean, I think it's not just a law enforcement thing, it's definitely a cultural thing too.
Right.
So, like, if you go to the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
And I've been there, like, you see people do take drugs, and if you get caught there, Portugal's the same. If you get caught with coke or any, like, heavy drugs, they just take it off you. You don't even get a fine there.
Right.
And what I've noticed about Australia, and this could just be me projecting myself onto people, but maybe it's just people I know or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be like that. You look at how we party and how we take drugs and stuff. When I was over in Europe, people do it, but they, like, you know, they'll have, like, one line.
Right.
And then they'll leave it. And then they'll be like, okay, yeah, and whatever. In Australia, it's like people go on, like, a 3-day bender. Or, you know, it's heavy usage that's, like, acceptable, and people don't understand how dangerous it is. And, like, when we drink in Australia, you're going hard. Like, you go out.
Oh, you don't do it at all.
Yeah. It's that mentality with it. And then when you're playing with something that's as dangerous as, like, those heavy drugs are, it only takes one weekend. It happened to me. I can speak personally from that. Where you just fuck yourself potentially forever. You know, and I don't know if it's a law, like, how... I'm of the standpoint where I don't really think you should go to jail and all that sort of stuff. I think it should be more of an education thing, and like it is in the Netherlands and stuff. Like, people kind of understand it better. Like, you are participating in a dangerous activity. You probably should just not do that.
Yeah. I'm just really interested to know what drives that kind of, like, go hard or go home kind of mentality in Australia.
I don't know. It's just we grew up that way.
Yeah. And also with the crowds as well, like hanging out with the wrong crowd, because I can't relate to you in a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Because I used to have pretty good friends. And I didn't even... well, I mean, like, I smoked weed once or twice in high school.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this. But, like even the drinking, I didn't go crazy on it. I didn't do any hard drugs. I've never taken MDMA.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's also the crowd as well.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure you'll find those same people here.
Yeah.
Doing that shit. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to say. I know people in Australia that never got involved in that sort of stuff. It's not just, like, that was my choice and the people I hang around with, and, you know, that's what we ended up doing and stuff. But, I mean, Australia's definitely got, like, if you look at studies and stuff about drug usage in Australia, we use a lot of drugs. Australia uses a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
And so it's not just, like, it wasn't just the people that you know me, and I was doing that. Like, it's not far from anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sort of nonsense.
And like, to be honest, I've never thought of you as a person who would, like, want to one-up someone, you know, like, one-upmanship about, like, oh, yeah, you did this, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do more drugs. Like, I never thought that you were, like, kind of person that competed with your peers on, like what
drug
you do.
consumption.
Yeah, I'd never thought of you like
I don't know. Like, for me, I think it was a bit deeper than just, like, a bit of fun and stuff. Like, I always had, like, pretty serious anxiety when I was younger. And when I would drink and take drugs, it would go away.
Right.
And, like, it was mainly drugs. Like, I wasn't really trying to beat anybody at it, but you definitely get known as being a bit of a party animal and stuff. And, yeah, you end up, like, literally having an ego about being a party animal. And, like, you know, I'm the type of person, I love hanging out with people.
Yep.
I still love hanging out with everybody. It's something I just love doing. I love having a few beers with my friends. It's something that I think I just love. I love spending time with people.
Yep.
I love talking to people, and I love knowing what other people have to say and think and all that sort of shit. So that world, like, kind of drew me in because, like, I thought, you know, all these people just, you're not really, there's no goal. You're just being together. So it's a multitude of things. And I obviously didn't have the intention of going and losing my fucking mind either. So, like, in my head before it happened, I was just, you know, going out with the boys and partying and whatever. So it was never like, I wasn't actively trying to be more than
You thought it
anybody
was
else.
normal.
Yeah, I just thought it was normal, and
Being young and
for
stupid
sure.
and shit.
And
yeah.
for me as well, like I always had really gnarly anxiety.
Yep.
So of course I was self-medicating by, you know, and I never dealt with it. Like when I was younger, I used to just push it away, and then my way of, you know, getting away from it instead of going through it and dealing with my stuff, I would just drink it away or fucking snort it away or whatever. And then, you know, then the weekend would finish and I'd feel like shit all week, and then it was just like a cycle of bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Like you just end up in this thing and you can't get out, and it's weird. Yeah.
You know what? I also think like I know this must be a little bit stupid, but like the music that we used to listen to as well, like they were like, I remember listening to like Wiz Khalifa like in high school.
Yeah.
Or like songs that came out during our time in high school. You're like, you're young and you're free and you're supposed to do all this kind of shit.
Smoke pot and drink and shit. Yeah.
And then sometimes it's something that we don't really need to hear. But like you people in the States must be doing it if people are singing about shit like this. And like, I'm young. I'm supposed to be doing this. Like, I'm supposed to be going crazy. Like, that's how you're supposed to live. Like, I mean, I think the media is to blame a little bit as well.
I mean, like I remember when I was younger, and like I remember like
Cursor and
yeah. I mean, I love Cursor straight up. But when I was younger, do you remember when Eminem put out albums? I don't know. You might have been a bit. You're only a couple of years younger, but I don't know. We were like 7 or something, and I somehow managed to get my little paws on the Slim Shady LP, the really gnarly shit. Like when we were kids, I told my mum. I remember I was like 7 or something. I think it was 2003 or something. Fuck, I don't know. But I remember I got my mum bought it for me because I don't think she knew what it was. She got it for me for my birthday. Yeah. So we're growing up on that shit. Anyway, what I'm getting at is I remember back then remember the Columbine massacre?
Oh,
do you remember that?
I don't remember.
It was like a mass shooting in the US, right? And they were like blaming Eminem and Marilyn Manson and like all these dudes who made all this like gnarly, crazy music. And like I remember being so defensive about it and going, it's not fucking their fault, it's not their fault and stuff and whatever. But back to the original point, you actually look at the music that people listen to, and if you're an insecure teenager or a young adult, and you're like, what's cool? What am I doing?
How can I fit in?
For sure. And like and who do I look up to? And like you see, like on Instagram, like I love Australian hip hop. I love it. Like I don't know. I grew up on this shit.
Yeah.
But like you see people who don't just enjoy it, they actually like think it's real. Yeah. And then they try and do it. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's what we were doing. We were like, yeah, look, these guys talk about coke and selling drugs and fucking being crazy and stuff, so we're going to do it. And then we actually did it. Yeah. Like it wasn't just like, yeah, we're in the club for the night. We were like, fucking, let's get it. Like, and then we were being animals, like just no regard for our own safety or health or anything. And we thought it was fine. Like I really thought it was okay. Yeah. My mum used to be crying. Like, I mean, fuck, you know, we'll get into the deeper shit later, but like, yeah, I mean, my mum would ring me just like a mess. Like, where have you been? Your phone's been off for days. You just disappeared. And I'd be like, fucking, what are you talking about?
Yeah, during that time, parents are like, I don't know, you feel like they don't know what you're going through.
Yeah, yeah.
And there is no one else that would, you know, pat you on the back and be like, you know, like all these, like, things that you're hearing in songs and stuff like that. It's not, like, it's not real. Like, it's not how you're supposed to live. Like, no one ever told me that. Like, I grew up, I didn't execute it, but I grew up being that type of kid who was like, I'm being lame or
yeah, for sure.
And shit like that, yeah.
Of course.
I was never the one to, like, actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when that happened to me. Like, I was always I always had very low self-esteem. Like, I always felt inferior to other people.
Never looked at you that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think everybody who's outwardly that, like, fucking, what you got, like, eccentric? I think not everybody, and, like, I'm still very extroverted. I know that I'm a bit, you know, when I'm talking, I get a bit loud and I get excited and fucking whatever, but, like, back then it was all a front, because I always felt so, like, just less than everybody, and it was just anxiety. I was just always like that, and so that's why I liked getting fucked up. Yeah. But I used to pretend a lot, right? So I'd be like, yeah, we'll get loose and you know, whatever. But then I think when I was about 20, I remember we were out one night, and I was always really scared of fighting, and I hated it. I always hated fights. I still hate fighting. I think it's stupid and whatever. But I always felt weaker than other people.
Mm-hmm.
And one night we were out, and like, you know, this is around the time where I was getting quite a bit of money, so that was going to my head. You know, for a young guy, I mean, people make a lot more, but yeah, for a young dude, I was running my own business, I was getting it done, I was making money, and then I was starting to feel a little bit like, okay, maybe I'm not like such a loser. I mean, I don't know why I ever thought that. I was always a nice guy and was always, you know, I don't know why I thought that, but I did. I used to think that. And I went out one night and someone said something to some, like an Indian cabbie. They were like, you fucking curry munching kind of some shit like that. And I remember I was like, what the fuck did you say?
Right.
And this dude was like, what, you want to have a crack in that? And I was like, yeah, fucking oath, let's go. And it was, like, I know it's stupid, but it was like the first time that I felt like I'd finally stood up for myself. I wasn't just like trying to drink it away. I know, and it's such a ridiculously,
No,
you know,
it's more,
but it was just one of those things that like, I was like, and then from that moment, we didn't even end up punching on either. Thank God. But like, I remember just thinking like, I'm not gonna be a pussy anymore. Like, I'm gonna do what I think I want to do, and I'm gonna enjoy doing it. And unfortunately for me, that just went into everything I did, and at that time I was engaging in some stupid shit too, so it just went crazy with that too.
Also, like, I'm not a pussy.
I'm not a bitch, I'm gonna drink it, like, if we're gonna party, we're gonna do it properly, we're gonna spend all this money, and like, and then when I was at work, I'd be like, yeah, well, what's the way that we're gonna get more money, and like, yeah, it was like just this moment where I was like, I'm just gonna go hard in whatever I want to do, I'm not gonna be scared, and I'm not gonna, yeah, and yeah,
the
I mean,
Aussie mentality that we were talking about, go hard or...
Yeah, exactly, but I was still, I didn't, you know, use that in a positive manner. I just like...
But do you think that is you, or
yeah,
is
for
just
sure.
an act?
No, like, I mean, I've definitely got that thing in me that I just want to do everything right.
Right.
And like, obviously I chose the wrong things to do right, so I took, I'd party hard and I'd be a dickhead, and I just never knew where to aim it because I'd held it in for a long time, and it would come out in bursts, and then I'd go back into my shell. I'd never really was good at analysing myself. So I'd all of a sudden feel okay, and I'd be like, what? I wouldn't even try and figure out why I felt okay or like how to continue to keep feeling okay. I would just be like, oh, I feel good now. Like, there was no real reflecting, and I didn't really like looking into my own emotions and stuff, so... Yeah, it just, I just started doing that, but in dumb shit too. And yeah.
But sometimes when you're like when you don't know where you are in life, or you're really confused, or you're trying to find yourself like that, a lot of people I see take it out on people. Yeah. And be a dickhead or whatever, and put people down, and, you know, bully the shit out of people, or like that guy who talked to the Indian guy, you know. But I always see you as someone being like a very kind, you know, like cherishing connections and stuff like that. So that's something that that I don't see in many people, like who's lost in themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I just always knew, like, internally that it was no one else's fault, no matter what happened and stuff. And I never wanted, like, some people draw the conclusion of like, well, it happened to me, so fuck you, and then I'm gonna, you know, take it out on you. But I've never felt that way. Like, I've always felt like, okay, well, I don't want anyone else to feel that way ever. And so I always held it in, and I never dealt with it either. And that's, I think, how it got I got out of control. Because like, if you don't go into yourself and really figure out why you feel a certain way, or at least what am I going to do about the fact that I do feel this way, right? If you just try and mask it with drugs, which a lot of people do, and like, I've noticed with people that haven't gone through anything like too serious, and they kind of live on this like grey zone. They're just like, nothing too great happens to them, and nothing really bad's ever happened, and they kind of just, you know, they have a few drinks every night, they numb it, but it's not gnarly enough for it to like brew inside you and something really terrible happen, which in a way can be bad. Like, for me, it was really rough, and that's what it took me to like go into myself and figure out what was going on. But a lot of people just teeter-totter, like, sort of like melancholy through life, not really, never really dealing with it. Yeah, and like...
And that's a very hard thing to know, that you have to look into yourself. Like, it's very humbling, and thinking about your own existence and who you are as a person. Like, I know a lot of people want to avoid that question.
For sure. Yeah. And like, we'll drink, and like, you know, you do, like, most people aren't self-destructive enough for them to really take themselves to a really fucked up level, right? But they just live, like, like you're saying, like people who take stuff out on people and all that sort of stuff. Like, I've noticed it with people who haven't had anything too serious happen to them do it more.
Right.
I mean, and everyone goes through their shit, and obviously people who've had serious stuff happen, they also project and do all that sort of stuff. But I've noticed with people who haven't had anything too bad happen to them that I'm aware of, and then I talk to them and stuff, they're like, I just don't like people, and I'm going to be a dickhead to them.
Right.
It's like very like, yeah. And I can see how you can get that way. But for me personally, and like you as well, like I've never seen you get like that. Like, I mean, obviously you get angry and you fucking have a little sook and like, you know, talk shit and be an idiot occasionally or whatever.
Piss me off.
But, yeah, like, yeah, I mean, back to what you said, yeah, I just don't like taking my shit out on people.
Yeah, and I realized that not only in this, like, big case, but it's like for athletes as well, like powerlifting athletes, for example.
Yeah.
Some pretty fucking strong dudes, right? Like
Yeah.
a champion, world champion. They are kind to everybody
Yeah.
because they've already been there. Like they've already been the strongest in the world. They don't need to prove themselves to anyone. You know,
Yeah,
they're very
yeah.
humbling. They're very understanding. People who are who's super good at their jobs. People who have been very, very successful. Like experienced a lot of shit, ups and downs. Like they tend to be very kind people. I see that. as
Yeah,
well.
a bit more well-rounded. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, also, it's not just people who have gone through shit. Like, you see people that are just naturally quite introspective, and then we'll get into like the more, like crazier shit. Like, the reason I think that people, you know, like there's like the dude who's like in a powerlifting competition, for example, and they walk in and like they're just a dickhead. And like they go and they're like, I'm gonna be the one who lifts this weight,
Yeah.
and you're
Don't
gonna have
talk
to lick my
anyone.
balls after it. You know what I mean? Like, and then if they win, they just like walk off with this like fucked up air of superiority around them. And if they lose, they're just like salty and angry, and they're not happy for anyone who beat them.
Yeah.
Like, those are the people that like, and this is like ego shit, like external, you know, like attaching yourself to external things, right? If you think that the only way you can be happy is by winning, or whatever, I'm the best powerlifter. You see it with, like, some famous people, like, if you follow them on Instagram and, like, they have a wig out and shit. Like, it's a loss of identity if they're not the best, or whatever the hell they tell themselves that they are. And, yeah, I mean, like, you see it in people. You see people who are just, like, they got, like, this, like, gross, like, air about them where you're just, like, you're just a dickhead. Like, I don't want to be near you. I don't want to be around you. Like,
What's the
fuck
point
off.
of that? Yeah.
And those people don't tend to get anywhere, really. Like, they'll go up and down, and the reason they don't is because they're not really real. And they'll fuck each other over, and they'll fuck other people over, and they're not there to be friendly, they're not there to help anybody. It's all conditional on the fact that they're going to win.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't... Like, people like that, from people that I know that are like that, most of them have just come from really boring-ass lives. They never had to, like, dig deep into themselves and find anything out. They're just like, I'm going to do this, and they're just like trying to do that, and like they don't have any depth to them. There's no sense of self other than the fact that they will attach themselves to some random thing that they decide to do.
Or it could be like they're really, really stressed. They have stuff going on in their lives that they're not really happy about, or they just hate their lives and they take that towards other people. Like, because I know a lot of people who get into like bullying and stuff. They tend to have problems at home already, you know, parents empowering them and not being able to speak up to them, so that's why they go to school and take it out on other kids. Like, could be a lot of factors.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even really know. But I mean, you can go two ways. You either become somebody who tries to stop like that shit, or you just don't participate in it at the very least, or you get hurt and then you do it back to people. There's like it comes down to that. Like, I don't know anybody, and I don't even who goes out and hurts someone intentionally who's not fucked in the head. You know, you've got something going on with them, you know? Like, every time I've done something fucked, like, I've definitely hurt people in my life. Everybody has. You know, every time I've done something, it's because I'm trying to, like, I've just something going on me and I'm going to put it on you. You know what I mean? And some people, I think you just got to not be okay with doing that. Because you're always going to have something happening, you know, in your world, and the stress and, you know, emotional pain and stuff. But if you deal with it and you know that it's wrong to take it out on other people, then at least you deal with it and you get rid of it and you just drop it off. Every time something gnarly in your life happens, you know, it comes up, you get all of the, you know, insane things going on inside you. if you know how to deal with it and you can drop it, then you're not going to project it onto other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a skill that everybody should like learn.
Yeah, because some people don't even know that they're in this state. Yeah, right. You're sweating like.
Yeah, dude, it's hot as fuck.
Maybe there's like a towel or something.
Hey,
Yeah. No,
hey,
fine.
okay. Do you want a drink?
Yes.
I've noticed this with people. There's people, like, you know how your mind, it'll make up a story about what happens, and then you just like, you fucking did this, and then now this is why I feel this way, and you're a fucking
Like
dickhead.
blaming on other people.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like some shit happens, and like you get in a fight with somebody, and you start like weaving a fucking
That's
carefully.
normal at times.
Of-
It's like a physical
course.
frustration that
Yeah.
disrupts your mind.
We all do it. We all
and
do
it's
it.
irrational thinking
Yeah.
after a fight, especially. Like, you're not made to think rationally after a fight.
It's hilarious. Like the quilt of just bullshit you've
I
woven.
hate that about myself.
Yeah, but
Oh, we all do it.
Of
I
course.
mean, to a certain extent.
of course,
But I want to get to a place where I don't.
of course, and you can. I mean, you can, but I mean, it's something that it literally every single human being does it. You get angry, and then an emotion will arise, and then your mind will create a story, and then you just go, "This is what happened," and it's just not what fucking happened at all. You made it up,
Yeah.
right? And then there's people though. There's people who don't even know that they didn't make it up. Like there's people, there's like a few different like groups of people that I can see through my observations of humanity. But like there's ones who truly believe that that's what happened and they're serious. They're not like, oh, okay, fuck man, I was just angry and I was running my mouth.
Yeah.
Like you get those people you get in an argument with, they're always right, and then like even after it, they'll leave it and you might still stay friends, but there's no like laughing about it or anything. It's just, this is what happened in my brain
Yeah.
and how I perceived it,
Yeah.
and that's it. And they just everything in their life is like that.
Yeah.
They're just always right.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of people like that.
I mean, it's just a coping mechanism, obviously, but
Maybe it's like an ego thing.
for sure.
Well,
A part of their ego is that they're always right. And if they're wrong, that means that like their existence is wrong, and therefore they've got to defend like every little petty fucking bullshit thing that happens with like their whole might of their their being, dude. You watch people do it. You can see it with people. You just like some people when you say they're wrong, they just go, oh sorry, like there's not even a like water off a duck's back. Yeah. And some people it'll be just some like tiny bullshit thing. Like you criticize them about like, I don't know, fucking you left a sock on the floor or something.
Yeah.
And they'll go, fucking hell. Like, it just anything that is against them is, like, perceived as, like, an actual threat to their, like, sense of who they are.
Yeah, even the tiniest things, right? Because I feel like I used to be that way when I was younger, but it's, like, more, I don't know, I realize now it's like, oh, you left a sock on the floor. Oh, shit, like, I might have done this. Like, it's I tried to be accepting and blame it on myself. Yeah. Maybe, but it's definitely not an age thing because I know a lot of people who are old and are like that.
Yeah. That's scary when you get to it. Like, when I was a kid, I always thought that, like, adults were just, like, sensible creatures and it was just us kids that were, like, all fucked up and shit, but it's just not, it's the opposite, probably. It's truer. Like, yeah, you can hold a job down and, like, function and stuff, but, like, you can't have a conversation about if you're, like, doing something that, like, another person doesn't like, you're just going to flip your lid. But, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I used to be the same. Like, I used to have such a big ego about being, like, I don't know I don't want to say this, it sounds dickish, but, like, I used to think, because I'm, like, smart, I don't know, whatever the fuck that means. Like, I used to really believe that I'm smart. I used to be like, I'm so smart, and I know everything. And, like, when somebody would, like, challenge me, even though I didn't openly say anything necessarily, I'd be like, you know, they're wrong. And I'd have to weave another layer of shit in my head. Yeah. Where I'd be like, yeah, no, but it's because of this and that, and you justify it away. And everybody, you're constantly doing it. And if you watch yourself doing it, you're just in a constant state of, like, defense against other people.
And you're not learning anything from... And there's always things that you can learn from other people, but 100%. When you're being like that, you're not learning anything. You're not gaining anything for yourself, really. I
think it's a sense, like, people want to be comfortable. Yeah. And people, if you're not actively, like, looking for the truth or whatever in life or whatever, and you just want to stay in your little bubble, like, you definitely have, like, a general story about what the world is, who you are in it, and anything that threatens that... is going to be taken as a threat. Yeah. Even though it might be true.
And threat is like,
Yeah.
Hey, like sirens
Yeah.
going off in your head, like,
Fuck
oh,
yeah.
you gotta protect yourself, you're in danger.
For
kind
sure.
of.
Absolutely. Like, you get a lot of people who... And it's a subconscious thing. They don't even know they're doing it. But, like, you can tell somebody a fact. You know, have you ever had an argument with somebody and you're just like, well, this is what happened. I'm not even trying to yell at you. This is what happened. And I didn't like it. Or whatever it is you're talking about. They're like, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, you did that to me. I'm not trying to fucking... Like, I'm not going to talk about... Like, I'll talk about anything you want. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty simple thing. This happened. Can you not do it? And they're like, that's not what fucking happened, man. You did this, and like you're always fucking talking shit. And what do they call it? Gaslighting, when people like try to turn it around. It's just constant like mind games to not be wrong ever.
Yeah.
And if you can be wrong, it's great. I like being wrong because you just like, okay, well they don't like that, so I'm gonna stop doing that.
Or there's people like you say a random fact. And they always, like, want to one-up you, like, try to prove to you that they know more. So, like, oh, no, that's wrong. Because this actually happened.
I was definitely like that. I used to have that.
Really?
For sure, yeah. I mean, I used to... I even if I didn't express it, I used to, like, do it inside a little bit when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I'm like, oh, fucking hell, you're just a dickhead. Like,
No, because I spent...
I'm just a dickhead. I mean...
I spent 2 years in Bali, right? And, like, this is just an example. And maybe, like, 5 years ago when people... talk to me about Bali, like going to Bali and going drinking and it would be so nice if I went to Bali and spent like a whole day at the beach and drinking, just normal shit like
yeah.
But then something would like trigger me and be like, Bali's not that kind of place. Bali's not what you think it is.
My Bali isn't like that. Yeah.
Bali's such a like a sacred place, like,
For
and
sure.
I always like want to say something about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
It's funny, but because what we're actually doing, I do the same. Like when I came to Japan, I was like, oh fuck, man, I'm all good. I'm just gonna chill. And then people who talk about Australia, and I'm like, that's not Australia.
Yeah.
This is Australia in my brain's story is Australia.
Don't say it, Harry. Don't say it, Harry.
This is my fucking Australia. You can't like.
Yeah.
You just It's anything. I think, and it comes down to this, right? I mean, you know, I've been doing for years now, like 2 years since I like got my shit together and stuff, is like literally just trying to decipher what is negative and behaviors, thinking, whatever. You know, I still have a few negative things, like smoking and shit, but like, all I've been doing is like going, okay, well, what is the real reason why I'm getting angry about this, or why do I suffer in general? What causes it? Like, I look around and go, nothing's happening outside. You know, I'm just sitting in this room. Why am I pissed off about some conversation that if you were to watch a TV show on it and you were watching yourself, you'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. Calm down.
Yeah.
And pretty much what I found out is that it's just an identity thing. So like, and what you're consciously aware of as to how you justify yourself, basically, like mentally, you don't know. So it'll come out of nowhere. You'll try and talk about Bali. Someone will be like, oh, I was in Bali and I got a scooter and I got drunk and crashed into a car, and you're like, that's not Bali. This is Bali. You know, like, we're all constantly doing it, and it's to protect pretty much our own self-image of ourselves.
Yeah.
So like, this is what Bali meant to me when I was in Bali, or this is what Australia was to me when I was in Australia, or whatever, wherever it is, or whatever it is. It can be any sort of topic of conversation. Computers. You know how some people will be like, Samsung's better than iPhone.
Yeah.
iPhone's better than... You know, like, you're a fan. It's like, fuck. You don't actually give a shit. You know what I mean? If you had a Samsung, you'd be an iPhone or whatever. If you had the opposite one, you'd be saying the same thing. You know what I mean? It's just it's a way of like you extending your sense of self onto a external thing. Stories, mental thoughts, whatever. And it's literally, if you can, and you know, we'll talk about this when we get onto meditation and stuff, and this is how I kind of got myself out of it. But if you watch what you're attaching yourself to, clothes, people who fucking get clothes and shoes and shit, right? And you'll be like, you know, when you're walking down the street, you're like, I feel fresh as fuck, I got new shoes on. You know what I mean? That's ego. Like, you just...
Can relate.
Yeah, I mean, you buy some new shoes, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying shit, right? I'm not saying that, but like, it's when you attach yourself to external things and then consider that as a part of your sense of self. And like, if you said to somebody in a normal conversation, you think shoes are a part of your ego, they'd go, fuck off, idiot. But it's like, well, when you go buy shoes, why do you have such an erection for them? Like, or whatever it is, it can be church, it doesn't matter. People will attach themselves to anything. You know, it's just about being in a group with other people and also having a sense of who you are based off of external things, and you'll do it with anything. You know?
But I think it's kind of scary. Like if that comes into something like politics, economics, science, where people are trying to speak quote unquote facts, right? But after all, if what you said is correct, right? The world would be a pretty fucking biased place.
Well, it is. And that's the problem. So, like, you know, if you look at politics as a great one, like, probably politics and religions are easy to talk about because it's, like, very obvious, right? You know, like, you get people on the radical left, like, I used to be all involved in that bullshit, like, anarchism and shit. I got it tattooed on me. I got a fucking dinner plate sized anarchy tattoo on me. Like, I used to be well and truly deep in that bullshit. And, like, when you subscribe to any side of it, right? So if you're like, I'm an anarchist, right? And this is what anarchists believe. Even if the right of the political spectrum have something that's reasonable, you're just going to go no. And then it becomes about sides, and then ultimately what you're doing is you're fucking defending your own identity. Like, why, if you're looking for politicians, right? Or politics is supposed to run a country. They manage countries. That's what our government is for.
Yeah.
And then you'll get people who, there's good ideas on both sides. But if you're going to go, I don't know what the political parties in other countries, in Australia it's Labor and Liberal, they're the two major ones, and Greens and stuff as well. But like, people who are really deeply involved in politics, they'll go, everything that Liberals do is bad. And it's just not true. Yeah. And everything that Labor does is bad for liberal, like-minded people. And it's just not true. It's like, what is going to work and benefit people the most? And people don't look at it from that point of view. People tend to attach themselves to one side. Yeah. And then they get in arguments about the dumbest shit. And then if you actually look a bit deeper, they're not even arguing about that. They're arguing about who's right at the end of the day because they're trying to justify their identity that they've attached to a political party. Why? Okay, if hospitals, let's make up some, I don't know, some hypothetical, right? Like, there's a solution to which this hospital will just run better. Let's use a very, like, broad thing. And Labor thought of it, right? Liberals are just going to go, no, we've got a better one, even though it's not better, necessarily. Even if it's like, okay, let's say it's objectively worse. Yeah. They'll still say that ours is better, even though it's not.
Yeah.
And then they'll argue about it, and they'll talk, and they'll blah, 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 and it'll be like this big thing. And at the end of the day, if everybody just went, okay, well, how about just none of that, and what's going to make the hospital better? Yeah. But we don't do that.
Yeah.
People tend to pick sides based off of, and based off of what they've identified themselves with. And I think it's a massive, massive issue for people and humanity because it absolutely limits your ability to think properly. People who are very intelligent, I know a lot of smart people that are like, you have these conversations with, and they'll fucking go tooth and nail on their side of whatever they're debating about. They're just good at arguing. They're not looking for the truth. And if you say I'm liberal and this is how liberals think, right? This is an example. You can't think anything else, even if you're capable of it. If you're saying this, you're going to think from that point. Yeah. And it causes a lot of drama.
But I think, I don't know how realistic it is, because it's not much of a political problem anymore. It's more like a human, like who we are as human species that we think of that way. So yeah. It is definitely a very big problem to overcome, and I don't know if that's realistic. I mean, it might be easy for you to change one person's mind on how you think, but changing like a whole group, the whole world, or the whole for society, sure. Or I
mean, like for me, like this was a deeply personal thing that I kind of fell into because I had to. Like I'd lived for such a long time in just misery, right? It was like serious misery that I just wouldn't wish upon anybody ever. But I just went, I'm just going to find out what's happening inside me. If it's possible to fix it, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And what I learned from that is that it's not just like chemical imbalances and whatever. It's shit that you think and believe too. And if you believe in a certain religion or ideology or whatever the fuck it is, or that I'm a fridge or whatever you reckon you are, right? If you think that and you act as though you're a fridge, and you're like, okay, well, fridges cool things down, so I'm going to stand there holding a fucking sausage and whatever, trying to freeze it with my hands. I don't know. Whatever the hell it is you think you're doing, right? But, like, I just went into myself and I was like, okay, well, what do I think and what do I do and what behaviors do I engage in? Everything. What is causing me to feel like shit all the time? And what I found is that it's like attaching its identity. I thought I was a piece of shit. I thought I was this. I had all these core beliefs about myself that are just utterly just ridiculous. And what I ended up finding out is that all beliefs about yourself are ridiculous. Yeah. knowing what you're capable of is good, like, you know, memory, and this is all kind of like gnarly as shit. But like, using your memory, you've got it so that you don't, number one, make the same mistakes you had before, and number two, so you know what you know how to do. Like, if you don't have memory, you wouldn't know that you know how to drive a car. You know what I mean? Like, you need it. But like, we have a past and we dwell on it, and you think about it all the time. You never deal with all the emotional trauma that it created. All of it's you attaching yourself to it.
But I think it's important for you to differentiate of what is negative thinking and what is realistic thinking.
Yeah.
Because you might tell yourself you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be negative thinking for one person, but it might just be reality. Like, you might be a piece of shit and you need to work on it.
Yeah, for sure.
What is realistic and what is negative? Like,
absolutely.
It's important to differentiate.
Absolutely.
Because there are soft people out there that just wants to defend themselves and be like, oh, this is negative thinking. I don't need to think that way. When they should be thinking, yeah, I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I need to work on stuff.
Absolutely. So what it would come down to, and for me for a long time, I was just all intellect, no action. It was just like, well, I can say all this stuff, and like I can out-argue other people, and so no one can ever make me wrong, and I can keep behaving like a fucking idiot and destroy myself. And you need to know what's negative and then also stop behaving that way, of course.
Yeah.
You can't just say, okay, well, that's all just ego and mind, whatever. People, you know, especially people who get into the spiritual realm of life, you see them talking and they're just like, you're just a piece of shit. You're still being a piece of shit, but now you're using this whole like spiritual realm to go be a piece of shit in a spiritual way. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're not changing anything about themselves. You got to actually change.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah. And I know that people hate me for this, but like things like obesity as well. Yeah. And it like we becoming like this society where it's like being obese is okay. Yeah. Because you have to be happy with yourself. Yeah. Of course you have to be happy with yourself, but being obese is not okay.
Yeah. So that's like the mental trick that people use. It's like, well, I'm good the way I am. It's like, well, you're not, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to stay a piece of shit, like I used to do. You know, I used to try and be like, well, I can drink and I can do all this, and then I can criticize the world as well. You can't bend the world to cater to you. Yeah. Right? And you need to take responsibility for yourself and stop behaving like a fucking idiot. And then you'll be happier. You just will be. But you can't, you know, you see a lot of like, sorry, I'm blabbering so much, but like, you know, identity politics stuff. Yeah. They're like, I'm this, and you have to call me this and that. And you look at them and go, it looks like that whole thing and your whole circle of friends, and this is no hatred at all involved in this, like me. Yeah, of course, you just, what you're doing is instead of dealing with your own problems, you're trying to make people, you're outsourcing it, so you're saying it's everybody else's fault, and that if you stop behaving like that, I'm going to feel okay. And it's just not true. You need to actually go in and work on yourself if you want to actually feel different inside. Yeah. If you want to tell other people that you're this and you're that, and you're a successful feminist writer who's super happy about herself, or, you know, those guys that hate women and fucking, you know, they're just sexist dickheads. Yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you smear people, if you make other people feel, you feel like shit inside, and you wouldn't be behaving the way you are if you didn't. Yeah. And that has nothing to do with your sexuality. No, or like, nothing, of course.
It's just the spiritual side of...
Well, like, what is your day-to-day experience? It's that simple. If your day-to-day experience sucks and you feel like shit inside, then you need to work on it, and blaming other people for how you feel, well, I mean, you can do it till you die, and a lot of people do that, actually. But you're gonna live forever in the state that you are. And what I wish for the world is that the reality of your day-to-day existence is what matters, and if it's not good, then you need to change it. It doesn't matter if you make other people wrong, or, you know, you attach yourself to some idea where you get to be at the top of it. You still feel like shit, and I just wish that everyone would actually do the work to feel good, as opposed to creating great arguments that make everybody else wrong and justify how you feel. Because you can make everyone wrong, but you still ultimately feel like shit every day. Yeah. And you suffer, and you can't have a good relationship with people. You're scared of everything. I want people's actual experience, not their image, mind-created, fucking external bullshit life that you tell yourself you have. How do you feel in reality? Is it good or not? And I just wish that everybody could feel good. Yeah. And it's not easy. It's a lot harder than blaming other people or blaming what's happened in your life. But if you just do the work, you come out just at peace.
Because blaming other people is just a form of instant gratification almost.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
it's comforting at that moment,
Exactly.
but not necessarily really helping you in the end.
Yeah. Well, it's You get to get the little mental satisfaction of winning,
Yeah.
and then you walk off, and then you just go back to your house and cry.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to go home and cry ever.
Yeah.
This is just from my personal experience, right? But I mean, I destroyed myself to a point where you probably shouldn't even ever be able to get better.
Yeah.
And think about what you're doing 3 years ago.
I feel like we should have talked about this before we talked about everything.
Oh, I mean, it just happens naturally, but I mean, we knew this was coming. Like, we just, it's got to come up naturally. But, think about what you were doing 3 years ago until now. Well, where were you 3 years ago?
I was probably just getting my life together and trying to get back into uni.
Were you in Japan?
I was probably in Australia. I was probably in Sydney for a little bit.
Okay, so from when you were in Sydney until now, imagine if you didn't feel any happiness ever. It was just dread. You forget what it's like to feel good, right? And I remember just going, it was now it's easy to talk about and I can, have a laugh and stuff. But back then when I was going through that, drug psychosis, at the start, even when I first lost it, I remember going, well, a week ago I was good. So, maybe in a couple of weeks I'll get better.
Yeah.
Whatever, ridiculous thought. But, that's what I kind of held on to. But then as it progressed and it just didn't get better and I was trying to drink it away and just anything I could do, started getting in trouble, getting arrested, just doing crazy shit, crazy shit, literally. And after a year of that, you forget what it's like to feel good. And then after 2 years of that, you're just that's never happening again. And then after 3 years, you're it's just not even a concept that seemed real. Basically, the only thing that I could focus on without completely going insane was just getting up and going to work. And I'd get up and I'd go to work and I'd be just holding on and trying to run this business. And I don't know how I did it. I looked.
So bring the conversation back a little bit. How did it escalate to that point where you were
that fucked up?
Yeah.
I mean, that first thing happened.
It started from high school, right? The whole problem with drugs and self-esteem and...
Yeah, it was definitely...
Or from your childhood, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean... Yeah, it was... Yeah, I mean, fuck. I had some bad shit happen to me when I was younger.
Yep.
And, it was just straight from that. I mean, other people it might trigger them, but you can kind of get what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So that happened when I was a kid, and then... pretty much, I buried it. I remember I buried it. I didn't really understand anything and whatever. And then obviously it manifested itself later in my life and I was always there and I was always very anxious and I was always very good at hiding things as well. So my problem, even from myself. So it's brewing inside you and you just don't know necessarily what to do about it. And anything that you don't deal with will come up in some part of your life in some way.
Yeah.
And for me it was some just crazy shit when I was younger. And
And you had some traumatic experiences with your ex-girlfriend as well. Ex-girlfriend?
Oh god, yeah, just
do you think that was a triggering thing? I don't know. Maybe people might be able to relate.
I mean I got cheated on, pretty a 20-year-old relationship, and I took that very, very badly. Yeah, started drugs. Yeah, it was the whole period that I can remember from high school, the end of the last couple of years of high school. My mum was getting divorced,
right?
From my stepdad, who I grew up with, and it was just turbulent. It was a turbulent time. Me with my, I don't know how many kids are good at looking into themselves and talking about this stuff. I don't know. If I was back then, I would have just gone, okay, whatever. This is crazy. I'm getting out of here. But I took it obviously on. Mum was always, Mum and my stepdad, that shit was crazy. So we were just, I didn't like being at home. My relationship with my dad too was really, really bad at that point. We weren't talking. So for those from year 11, so 2011 through to 2014, 15, my life was just crazy as fuck. And so much different stuff was happening. I moved to Brisbane to go to university when I was still at university. I actually went really well in high school, actually, and I went good in high school. I got good grades. So I went to UQ, to University of Queensland, and I was doing economics, a double economics and science, and then science and chemistry.
Whoa, you were doing...
I was doing chemistry. I love chemistry. But my mum sold her house, the house we grew up in, and then I went up to Brisbane, and then I got kicked out of my apartment in Brisbane for like just being a menace. And then I went back down, and my mum had like a new house, and it wasn't like that big house. Remember? Did you ever come over to that one in Crumman? It's like on the school, like big ass house, and then she was in this smaller house, and like I was sleeping on the couch, and it's no one's fault but mine, right? I didn't have to behave the way I did, but it was like.
You
it was
didn't
just
accept it.
Yeah, there was just shit happening all around me, and my sister didn't want me in the house. It was just a lot of negative shit happening.
Your sister doesn't want you in there.
Yeah, fuck you, Chloe. No, nah, but I mean, yeah, there was just a lot of stuff happening in my life, and I turned to drinking and drugs for it instead of just being mature about it and dealing with it.
And
So
it started off with light drugs like weed and.
yeah, I mean, of course, and then I haven't even really thought about this too much, actually. But, like, looking back, I think the heavy drug usage started when my girlfriend cheated on me. And I'm actually mates with the guy. It's all good and shit. Like, I'm fucking water under the bridge or whatever.
Because that is, like, a huge, like, destruction of your self-worth. And
Yeah.
I know what
On
it's
top
like
of it,
to
a
be...
real... Yeah.
What it's like to be cheated on, but does not feel good.
No, and I caught them at the house.
Yeah, fuck.
Sorry, but okay, so I had this, like, feeling that, like, that's what was happening, right?
Yeah.
And then I got in I went to my mum's house, and she wasn't there because she's friends with my sister. And then, anyway, whatever, I won't go too far into it. But basically, I rocked up at the house after having some intuition to go there, and they're fucking there. It was gnarly. I laugh about it now. It's kind of funny.
That's
but
good, though.
I
it's remember
funny.
you came to Japan after it happened.
Yeah, I was a mess, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we
And we went out drinking as well.
Yeah. We were hitting
And
it
we
hard.
all just, I think, after we went out drinking, we all went back to my house and we just, me,
Oh, then we went
you,
to Osaka in the bus.
Rue. No, we just, like, I remember, like, sitting outside of the house and just, like, all of us three, like, crying.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
No. So, yeah. So that was in 2016, right?
I don't even remember, but I just remember, like, all of us just crying and
Yeah.
talking about life.
Yeah. I remember that. It was middle of winter too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we couldn't go back in the house because
Yeah.
we weren't allowed to be too loud.
God, that was that house down there, eh?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
No, that was
Shit
fucked
like that.
up.
Yeah, and then...
But, yeah.
Yeah, after that.
Yeah, then it just got. Yeah, then we that's when we really. That's when I really started hitting it harder. Like, I didn't care about anything. I was like 20, like, you know, broken-hearted 20-year-old and just being a fucking idiot. And yeah, and I had the business at that point too. So it was just like, if I really should have just like dealt with it, but I didn't have that capacity then. That's not how I dealt with stuff. I used to deal with it by getting on it. And and get on it I did. Very, very hard.
And it was I remember you explaining it to me. It was like a one instance that you took something that made you...
Yeah. So, I mean, it was definitely a cumulative thing, I
Yeah.
think, as well. Like, we were, you know, I didn't take drugs during the week or anything, and I was pretty...
Yeah.
Like, I liked being sober, too. I wasn't, like, fiending it all the time. There was no, like, no warning signs or anything. It just happened out of nowhere, and that's what was really scary. And that's what makes me worry about people now when I see people doing that stuff, because, like, you think, and this is back to the mental thing, you make up a story and you're just like, yeah, that's true. Like, if it was going to happen to me, I'd know beforehand. Or, like, Harry did it to himself and he knew it was coming or something, you know? I just went out one weekend, like any other weekend, and then it changed my life for years.
And
Just
that
one
drug was
mistake.
something that you've never taken before? Or you have...
It was meth, and I'd taken it before.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It was, like, I was never really into it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd done it maybe twice or something.
Yeah.
3 times before that.
And what because obviously I've never taken meth before. Like, what is, like, the difference in feeling, for example, meth and something like marijuana?
I mean, it's a stimulant, so it's like, but to be honest with you, it never really did much to me. Like, I didn't really understand why people took it. It was like, you just really, like, alert and awake. I didn't like it, but I used to I'd be drunk and, like, 2 days into partying, and then someone would be like, oh, you want something? I'd be like, yeah, right, and I did it. And that was it. That was the end of me. Yeah, it fucked me up. And, like, it fucked me up for, like, years.
Right.
And people go, okay, well, meth's a gnarly drug, and yeah, it is. But, like, you don't know what you're getting in an ecstasy pill or an MDMA cap that you think is MDMA. Like, I've definitely taken MDMA before, and I've seen other people on MDMA that are like, they look like they're on meth. and it's probably because they are. Like, you don't know what you're getting, you know, and like it doesn't.
That's scary.
People are on a lot finer a line than I think that they perceive themselves to be on.
Yeah.
People think that they're safe or that it won't happen to them and shit, but like, yeah, it's all well and good till it does. It's yeah. It's
I
terrifying.
mean, like, I know that, you know, some states are legalizing drugs in the States, in Canada, and there's been talks of, like, you know, like, marijuana not having any negative, like, effects on you, and that's probably true.
Nah.
But it kind of all depends on how the experience is with you, like, like, specifically.
Yeah.
Because it's, like, people react to it differently. People don't like feeling that way. So I guess it's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's a lot of talks going on, like, drugs aren't that bad.
Okay, so this is back to that point we were talking about before when I say, like, people attach themselves to something and then that's the truth. Like, the pro-weed people are like, there is nothing wrong with marijuana. Marijuana has never killed anybody and it will never hurt anybody because I love marijuana and marijuana's great. And then there's the other ones like the fucking Karen who's going, marijuana's fucking gonna send you to hell and you're gonna start fucking your mates and like sucking dicks and stuff and turn gay or whatever, like crazy shit. And like both of them are not true. Marijuana has risks, everything does. And
yeah, everything does.
And like you see scientists and you see doctors talking about it, but it's okay, this is the thing. The truth isn't sexy, it's just the truth. So like marijuana, yeah, it's, you know, it's not super dangerous or whatever. Definitely fucks some people up. I've seen people fuck themselves up on it. Doesn't agree with me personally. I don't like it. But would I say then I don't think other people should have it? No. But like
it helps a lot of people,
for sure, 100%. But you definitely shouldn't go into it like you see people. Like I follow a lot of weed pages on Facebook and stuff. I just like seeing what's going on in the world, and like they share a lot about, you know, you see what's happening in America and stuff. And I just like kind of knowing what's going on and stuff. And like you see people going cases of weed death by weed like 0, and like, you know, it's they will not have a conversation with you where you're like, okay, but there are risks involved with smoking marijuana. People who are susceptible to like get schizophrenia, for example, and people who blow up about this too. But like, it fucks people up.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't give them schizophrenia, I've seen dudes who just are on the bongs too hard and they turn into a fucking potato. You know what I mean? There is issues with it, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it should be illegal necessarily, but you don't even want to talk about that. You're just like, weed's fine.
Yeah.
And other people are like, weed's not fine. It's crack. And it's like, both of them are not right. Nobody likes to really look, nobody, but a lot of people don't, it's just a duality thing. It's like, it's this or it's this. And it's like, it's not either of those things.
Yeah.
It's like,
it depends.
Some of both of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big problem with the human, like, people's way of thinking. Like, they don't want to ever have a real, like, balanced conversation about anything. It's just like, I think this and therefore I'm going to defend that opinion. And yeah,
Japan is definitely the no side. Like, don't touch weed.
No marijuana.
Everything is bad for you. Weed is bad. Don't do this. Don't do that.
For sure.
But I guess it like you said, it definitely does depend on the person. Like for me, like the first time I smoked weed, I had a huge panic attack.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and I'm an anxious person.
Yeah.
So I think that didn't fit well with me.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with it now, but definitely not back then. So it really does. It really does depend.
And, you know, like, the thing is, when we talk about Japan like that too, you know, it's very, like, polar country that thinks, like, one way or thinks the other way. If you teach people to think that way, they're just... It's not real. It's not a real way of looking at anything. So, like, if you follow it, you'll probably be okay, right? And I guess that's the point of it on, like, a cultural, bigger level. Like, if we're not talking about us as individuals, but if they say, don't smoke pot, don't do this and don't do that, and you just... That's the, like, rule and that's it. And if you follow it, you'll be alright. But if you want to... A lot of people don't want to just follow rules and stuff. So I think the important thing to teach people and your kids and shit is how to think. Weigh up the risks and then make a choice. Don't just say this is bad and no. Because it's not... It's just as wrong as the other side of it. Usually. You know, and as soon as people discover... say like a teenager or whatever and their friends are getting into it or whatever, you're better off everybody understanding how to think about it properly and make real rational choices than some kid whose mates are smoking bongs and then their mum's just said it's bad, they go smoke a bong, they like it, they don't understand, then they're just like, okay, well mum, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm just going to keep getting on it. There's no... It just automatically turns it from, okay, they're wrong, and then now it's good.
Yeah.
When it's not necessarily. It's both. There needs to be more push, I think, within everybody to just stop trying to pick sides and find an easy answer to stuff and really look at everything and go, okay, well, this is all the information I have and make a choice based on that.
Definitely not easy growing up with it, like, to develop that kind of thought, like, thinking process, because, you know, like, when you're young, like, you rely all your information that you get from your parents.
Yeah.
And obviously, if your parents are biased, which a lot of parents are,
Yeah.
You end up being that way. And some things you just don't know until you actually try it.
Exactly.
So it's like, how are you supposed to educate? Like, I think about this all the time. If I was ever to become a mom, I don't know how I would educate my kids. Like, I would want them to try it.
Yeah.
Because if they really want to try it, they are going to try it.
Yeah.
Whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
Like, my brother did, like, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we fuck around. Like,
Yeah.
some things you just really need to experience, but then for you to be a good parent, like, what are you supposed to be? Like, I don't want to be a fucking strict, crazy, insane parent.
Yeah.
I don't want my children to become addicts.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
you
tell them
know.
what I did to myself, and they fucking probably will. You know, like,
I don't know, you talk
I'm
to me.
serious when I say, like, I mean, my opinion, I don't know what I'm gonna do either. I don't have kids and shit yet, but like, I'm gonna tell them what happened to me through doing that shit. And
when they're 4 years
yeah, don't smoke pot. But like, you know, I think the only thing that you can really ever do, you can't really ever control them anyway, is like, tell them what you know to be the risks, and then also, you know, say like, look, your friends are going to do it, you're going to be exposed to it at some point in your life, right? This is what can potentially happen to you. It probably won't, but this is what can happen. So don't be a dickhead with it. If you do fall and, you know, you're with a bunch of people and you want to smoke some weed, I mean, it'll probably be legal by the time we have kids in most places.
Yeah.
Like, they need to have a... This is my whole thing, right? You need to have a realistic picture of it. And what you think and whether or not you would do it's irrelevant. What is, like, the general truth? Like, how well can you paint the general, like, the best picture for somebody who's growing up and coming into a world where that stuff exists? You know, what picture can you paint for them? Don't try and scare them into saying, like, it's always no and it's always bad. It's like, this is what can happen, and then you make a choice. Because they're going to make a choice anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's that, until that time, I don't know.
Exactly. It's scary, eh?
It's
I don't know.
scary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'd be like, but I'm going to take a piss, alright? So.
Yeah, go ahead. 1 hour 25. Okay, so
Alright,
back
back
from
at it.
our break. So obviously you've gone through some rough patches.
Yeah.
And maybe people can relate, or people are maybe stuck in some way or form about.
Yeah.
Not. It doesn't have to be drug related.
No,
you know?
no,
I mean,
not
it
at
could
all.
be anything that they are addicted to that they want to get out of.
Yeah.
What is something that you maybe can recommend? Like, it could be a thought process, it could be some
Yeah,
sort
of course. I mean, well,
practices.
ultimately, it's all just thought processes that you know, it doesn't matter really what the contents of your issue is. Like, whether you're depressed or, you know, you're going through some shit, whatever it is, and everybody goes through it. And I mean, like, you can find even some sanctuary in knowing that. Like, we tend to isolate ourselves from other people and think of ourselves as, like, really, like, individual, and I'm the only one who goes through this and, like, blah, 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 but everybody goes through it, you know? And you don't need to, you know, just because I went that dark and that fucking crazy and blah, 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 blah. Like, coming back out of it, I got to a point where I was like, I remember when I was coming back out of that stuff, right? And I remember, like, it was like literally one day I just walked into my cousin's house. I was living in Sydney, I was working in Sydney, and I remember just going, I feel just the same as everybody else. And then other people were talking, and I was finally listening to other people. I wasn't so obsessed and, like, entrenched in my own crap. And I remember going, like, everybody's going through something, and, like, the way out of it's the same. You're all trying to go up, like, you know, in how you feel inside and whatever. So whether it's drugs or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're trying to get out of the situation you are in, like, internally within yourself, right? Or maybe it's some other situation that's causing you grief or whatever. But yeah, ultimately we're all going through something, and you're trying to make that something no longer cause you suffering, right? And the way that, like, you can do it in sport. I've noticed people, like, you do powerlifting. There's always some positive thing that you can go participate in that is just gonna, by virtue of just doing it,
Yeah.
It's better than what you were doing before. If you're sitting inside your room, you can't get out of bed, or you don't want to get out of bed, you don't leave the house for days because you're full of anxiety or whatever. If you just make the steps to go do something that you know to be positive for you, that's already...
And it could be anything.
Anything. Reading a fucking book. Going for a walk. Like, when I was coming out of it, right? Like, coming out of my shit, I remember, like, going to the shops for me, like, was like a serious thing. It would take all of me to make myself go and buy groceries, right? And obviously buying groceries is a positive thing. You need to eat, right?
Yeah.
And like it's a form of looking after yourself, right? Like you know that you need to eat good food or whatever, and you're gonna go buy those things and you're gonna eat it. And it's a very simple, basic thing. But if you're in a really fucking bad spot, it's not. It can be a really difficult thing to go do and have to go into a shopping center full of people, right? So what I started doing was I'd only buy enough groceries for like one day,
Right.
right? And so because you can go and you can buy 2 weeks worth of shit and then you don't have to leave the house again, right? And, you know, you can, what's the word, like, I don't know. But, like, you can put this across the board. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be this action. But, like, put things in your life that are, you know, are to be good for you. So I would buy 1 day's worth of groceries. And that would absolutely force me, because I'd already got the courage now to go to the shopping centre. I mean, it feels like I'm talking about another person, honestly.
Yeah.
But it would force me every day to do that, right? So pick something that, you know, I hope most people aren't in that place, and if you are, that's a good one to do. But, like, you know, if you're just feeling a bit stuck or something, find something that, you know, go to the gym or whatever, and make it something that it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You're going to the gym that day. Doesn't matter how you feel. And then what ends up happening is you end up getting some self-control. And you start to realize that it doesn't matter what you actually feel in that moment. You have the ability and the control to go and do it regardless, right? And the only way that you'll ever know that is by proving it to yourself, like from your own subjective point of view. When you're stuck inside and you're telling yourself you can't leave and you can't, you actually think that you can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once so what I started doing, and then after the shopping center, it turned into running for me.
Right.
Because it's hard. I know it's good for me. You know, intellectually, you know it's good, and then you've got all the rest of it in between, which is yourself. All the excuses, all the reasons why you can't go do that thing. And I forced myself to do it. I would go and I would run. It didn't matter how, like, it just didn't matter. I was just going running. And then I realized that you can make choices and you can do things. Because when you're in a bad place, you really think you can't. And going and participating in something that proves that to the contrary is absolutely the most important thing you can do, right? I just bought any book I could get my hands on. Like, I started off with The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
It's good. It's a really nice book. And then I went and I bought David Goggins' book. You know that Can't Hurt Me book?
You read that, yep.
And I remember they had this, there's like a challenge in it. You know, if you've read it, you'd know. Like, there's like little challenges he said to it. It's awesome. And one of them was like, you have to put the accountability mirror or whatever. And like, I remember when I was running at this point and I would get like 2 kilometers, I'd be like vomiting because like I'd been drinking and like being a dickhead for so many years. Like, my body was just fucked. Smoking and just, you know, everything negative that you could, you know, be doing. And I remember I put on the little like notepad thing and stuck it on my mirror, and it was like run 10 kilometers. And I remember like looking at it going, bro, it's never going to happen. Like, that was what my mind state was like. It was like, oh, you're never going to be able to do that so far. How could you ever do that? And then I hit 5Ks one day and I was like, fuck it. I'm going to fucking sack up and I'm just going to run these 10 kilometers. I don't give a shit. Tomorrow I'm getting up and I'm running 10 kilometers. I'm not going to stop till I do. And I did it, and I got to like 11 Ks, and my shins, I was like, I read the book, you know, it G's you up a bit. He's like, motherfucker, you can get anything done. If you want it, you got it. And I got to 11 kilometers, and my shins were so splintered on like both sides, shin splints, and like my hips were like failing on me.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it doesn't matter. And I was like, just like dragging my body along like a fucking sack of shit.
Yeah.
Just like, fuck it, I don't care. And then eventually I was like, all right, well, you have to go to work. If you can't work, like, you're going to hurt. You probably are going to actually hurt yourself soon. So I stopped. But I remember walking along at that moment, and I realized 2 things. One is that it doesn't matter what you think. You can do it anyway if you force yourself to. And the second thing was, it's not even about the goal. If you think that, and this is like, can be applied to a broader spectrum in life. If you think that when you reach a goal, you're going to find fulfillment there, you won't. They're just nice things to put there for you to challenge yourself in order to get there.
So it's more about the journey of getting there.
Yeah, and not even just that. You need to, once you find the inner peace and the source of your own inner peace and an ability to feel at peace all the time, those things are just fun. And people a lot of the time will say to me, like when you say something like that, they're like, well, what the fuck's the point of pushing myself, right? Well, the point of pushing yourself is to see how much you can do. But if you know that you're not going to find the whatever, like fucking the gold at the end of the rainbow at that goal, that it's just fun.
Yeah.
It becomes fun. Life becomes enjoyable. But if you're not there in that place, the best thing to do, from my point of view, or in my opinion, is to set out tasks that require you to discipline yourself, and then to go out and just do them.
So you don't necessarily really have to believe in it. You just have to
sure.
execute it even at the start.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then maybe your mind will start catching up.
Well, and this is, if you meditate a lot, you'll find this, right? Eventually. What you're actually doing is you're creating a gap in between what your mind says. And if you're still in that place where you think what your mind thinks is real, and that your limitations that you tell yourself are real, doing things that are really, that are beyond that is proving that stuff's just some bullshit, right? So doing hard things is a great way of doing it, because after it, you're like, well, I fucking just ran 20 kilometers, right? And I did it, no problem, all right? A month ago, I thought I couldn't run 5 kilometers, and now I'm running 20 kilometers. What else can I do? And that break in between what you thought you could do and versus what you can do shows, and this is what I really realized, is that what you think is just some bullshit.
Right. You're not your thoughts.
You're not your thoughts. I mean, even your own image of yourself, it's just a made-up load of bullshit. And then I started thinking, okay, well, what's actually the hardest thing I can put myself to doing? Like, what is the, like, not physically, because I know, like, I mean, and this is, like, a year later, but I started doing formwork carpentry. I was doing jobs that are just, like, so beyond brutal.
Yeah.
That, like, I just knew that I can go until my body just stops. And so, like,
That is a very David Goggins kind of...
Yeah, I mean, maybe he inspired...
It's pretty much like, he's pretty much saying, do everything that scares you.
Yeah.
And,
sure.
Like, I don't know, but I just feel like one thing that worries me, I've spoken to people about this, is that mentality, I think, is a winner mentality, right? You're not entitled. You have to work for things.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But how sustainable? How can you maintain that? I feel like you can do that for an event, like a marathon.
Yeah.
But imagine doing that for the rest of your life. Like, don't you think that would be like a mentally fatiguing way to think about things? For
sure. And if you justify yourself through what you can do and what you can achieve, you're going to run into problems, right? But I think it's a great thing when you're still in that place where you don't really know what the fuck's going on, you've lost your way a bit. It's great to participate in really hard things like that, because it will give you some sense of control over what you're doing, right? But to continuously do it, like I was doing a job here, right? I was doing form work, and like it's gnarly, and like I wouldn't just go into work and try and do what needed to be done. I'd go and be like, I'm gonna go until my fucking hands don't work and I can't even pick up a drill anymore. Like was using it as my practice of like seeing how far I could go, and then eventually I was like, well, I know that I can go until like I literally am vomiting and like falling over it. Like you can push yourself till you realize that your body's and the sensations that you feel in your body, you just don't care. It's just pain, and you're just like whatever. Yeah. You just kind of ambivalent toward it. You're like, all right. And then I was like, okay, well, I still don't feel like that method served me, and it served me really well, and it helped me get my whole life together on the practical sense. I'd gotten a really good work ethic and all the discipline that it requires you to have a decent life, right? But there was still like pain in me, and like there was still just like shit in me. I could feel it. I wasn't always good. I was like, and I mean, obviously, I put myself through the ringer, like my brain and stuff, whatever, but like there was still the fact that I'd gone from where I had to that point proved to me that I could only go further, but that way of doing it was no longer doing anything. I could be as disciplined as I wanted to be, and then I was just still like, okay, well now I'm just doing it, and it's just normal to work myself into just a state. Yeah. And get up and run, whatever. And then I was like, okay, so what's really the hardest thing I can do? Like that's gonna keep pushing me upwards, like mentally, and like also mending myself inside. And I was like, meditating. Like I'd been meditating a lot, and I'll tell you why it's hard. But I'd been meditating since I was going to therapy when I was in Sydney, right? And I was, like, like a psychologist. So I was going to a psychologist. He was teaching me like these things to deal with my mind and stuff. And I realized that it's the same shit that like they talk about in Buddhism and stuff. It's all linked.
But where?
Buddhism.
Oh,
and like
right.
all meditative things. It's basically watching your thoughts and like having absolute control of your mind till when it's just nothingness.
Yeah.
Right? And I know it sounds crazy, but try it, right? Do you want to try it?
I have tried it.
It's hard,
I
eh?
mean, I have tried it, but I feel like I don't know. I don't even know if I'm doing it right.
Yeah. So when you're doing it right, you'll absolutely know.
Really?
Yeah. So like you can get with meditation, right? Basically, what it is, it's discipline, but in your mind only.
Right.
So like you can do it with work, and you're doing that anyway while you're forcing yourself. You know, if you're doing like powerlifting, you know when you go in and you're about to lift the weight and you go silent and you go, all I'm doing is this.
Yeah.
Like you might not know it, but everything goes quiet.
Yeah, yeah.
And you go, and I think that's why everyone loves it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone loves doing things like that because there's that moment of peace, and you go, okay, this is me. Let's get it.
Yeah.
Pick it the fucking thing up, drop it, and go, yeah, fucking oath, right?
Yeah.
Meditating, the end goal of meditating is that feeling of quiet just whenever you want it. And so I was like, okay, how do I do that? So if I sit with myself, and I'd had little like glimpses of it where I'd like, okay, I was watching my mind, it would slow down. And this is kind of pointless to explain because you got to do it to experience it, right? But all you got to do is watch your mind. Now, can you just not think for an hour?
How can you not think for an hour?
No, you can. So now that was my next one, right? So I was like, you know what? Fuck
How are you
this.
human?
No, so I was like, dude, I want to see.
Yeah.
And what it requires, and I think the reason why we find it so difficult is because you have to look at all of your internal shit. It comes up, it's there anyway, and then we distract ourselves with shit like phones and fucking beers and shit,
Yeah.
right? But it's always there. The pain's always there. If you meditate, you have to look at it, right? And in order for
But
you
you
to...
don't let it think anything, right?
No, so for you to stop thinking, you gotta... You watch yourself. You watch your mind as though you're watching... Your mind's like a TV show. You're not really personally involved with it, right?
Right.
And that requires you to detach yourself from it. And you'd be surprised about how much of your sense of self is derived from the pain inside you and other bullshit, right? And for you to find it, you got to do it. But I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to go to the point where I can just at will not think at all. Just whenever I want. Because that's like, I mean, I don't want to fuck my body up. I want to have kids and shit, right? Like, I don't want to, like, how far can I go?
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to be a professional. Like, I don't know. I've pushed myself to where I know physically it's as far as I can go without my body starting to like decay, right? And so I started doing that, and that was about a year ago. And like I just every day, I'm just gonna try and do that.
I'm just gonna try to not think.
All that happens is you have to deal with what's going on inside you because you're gonna think about it anyway, and it's gonna come up. And in order to stop. To let it all go, it requires you to let everything that's ever happened go because you got to have to look at all of it.
Okay, so this is my mind when I try to meditate.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'm meditating. Okay, I'm supposed to think about my breathing. All right, I'm breathing. Now, the air is going into my lungs.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, no, I'm not supposed to be thinking about these things. I'm meditating. That's my meditation.
That's it. I mean, that's how I started, of course. Of course.
And I'm
Everybody
like, oh,
does.
God. I'm supposed to meditate for 10 minutes, right? That's what my sister said. Oh, no. Why am I thinking this way? Is exactly how
Well,
I think.
that's it. And what you'll start to... It's about noticing and watching. So, the end... And it's ridiculous. It sounds crazy when I talk about it, but you can do it, and there's a lot of people that do it. If you want to do something hard, do that. Do whatever it is you do in your normal day. But if you really want to really let go of everything that's in you, learn to watch your mind first. Of course, at the start, it's going and you're going all around the place and stuff. And a great way to start learning is by just focusing on your breath. And then when you get to a point where you can just sit there and just literally not think and just focus on your breath, then you can start going deeper into yourself and like really looking into why you feel certain ways and what's going on inside you.
So the point... Well, what do people have to think when they're trying
But that's pretty
to
extreme,
go
so-
into meditation?
The first thing you got to do, all you have to do is try and watch all of your feelings, thoughts,
That's hard.
everything. It's very, very hard. There's nothing
Can't you
easy
just
about
start
it.
by, like, the aim is not moving? Like, can't you start
Of
with
course,
that aim?
anything that requires you to reach
be
a goal
still. Oh,
and
right.
it's still like okay. So you could say okay, I'm gonna do 15 minutes, and a lot of meditative people say meditation like guru whatever say this is bad, but I don't think it is. You gotta first of all be able to sit there for 20 minutes without actually moving and making an excuse to move, right? Because you will.
Oh, yeah.
You go like, oh, what about whatever.
Yeah, I gotta check my Instagram.
It's all about being able to control that shit.
Right.
So being able to just sit through it at the start's great. And then eventually you'll get to a point where you don't even have to sit through it. You just sit through it. And then eventually you're like, I don't need the timer anymore because I know what's going on. But you have to personally practice it. And once you get the hang of it, you'll see yourself. It's not like, the thing that I love about it is everyone can do it and it has real results. But you got to kind of be a bit of a maniac with it. And like, if you want like the really, like people talk about mindfulness stuff and it's all good. It's all positive. It's all beautiful to be more mindful and be more present and stuff. But if you really just go, I'm just going to be present, you can do everything that you're going to do anyway, because it all happens in the present anyway. You can do it well. It doesn't tire you as much because you don't have a million things going on in your mind. You have control over your mind. And that's pretty much the end result of it. And it's hard. And so it's fun.
It's definitely something that's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And meditation, when you hear about meditation and you don't know anything about it, it's like putting nice smelling like incense on,
dickhead shit.
putting yoga music on, sitting on a nice little mat, like looking out into the open.
Yeah, and like fucking jerking off or whatever. Like it's like and a lot of people who do it are like that. Like you get guys who are like, oh yeah, and then this happened, and like you're just trying to paint another story of who you are. Yeah. It's all about meditating. At the end of the day, is about getting rid of fake ideas about everything, and you'll see the ones that you have when you look inside. And the reason it's difficult is because you can't get an external form of distraction like a phone or whatever and get away from yourself. You have to sit with yourself and find out why you feel that you can't just be with yourself. Yeah, and that's the end.
Because when you do think about it, like from the moment that you wake up and when you go to sleep, you don't really have time to really sit with yourself.
Just be there.
Yeah.
To just be there. And like we all have responsibilities and we've all got to go and do what we're obligated to do. You'd be absolutely shocked about how much time you actually have. Yeah, you're at work for fucking 4 hours or whatever, 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is. But when you have control over your mind and you really can, and you know how to calm it down, you're never going to succeed from the beginning, and it takes quite a time. I mean, I've been meditating for years, right? And to think that you're going to have the experience that I get out of it every day at the start is not going to happen. So what I did was, because I just trusted that, okay, the Dalai Lama, right? He says he's happy, and I wasn't. And I was like, every single thing that I've ever done has got me to this point in my life. So if I'm so fucking right, why am I such a piece of shit and so miserable, right? So he's happy. So what's he doing? And then so he's like, okay, I meditate for like 2 hours a day. And I tried it, and I couldn't do it at the start, right? But I would be like 20 minutes. It's happening before I go to bed every day, no matter what. And sometimes I didn't do it, and that's fine too. But like, I'd make up some bullshit and then not do it. But it was just the act of continuously forcing myself to do it all the time. And then eventually you don't have to force yourself at all. It becomes something that you like doing because you're just letting go of all the shit that you've got going on in your life and in your head and stuff. It's not fairyland, like jerking each other off around a fucking fire pit pixie
That's
wonderland,
Fairyland 3 of it.
but you know what I mean? Like, it's not bullshit. You're training your brain, and you're training your brain to work how you want it to. And you're training your brain to be calm when you want to be calm. It's not letting your mind control you. And that's all it comes down to. And I haven't really seen, and I mean, I want to start something about that. People do it though. So like in therapy, right? Like psychologists. It's called behavioral cognitive therapy or something like that. Sorry if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. I think behavioral.
But it's this exact same principle. It's like you have to observe your mind and then let it go. When it comes in, something negative pops up. You just go, okay, I'm not going to fucking participate in that thought pattern. I'm going to fucking get rid of it. And it's so hard to do. But the better you get at it, it just becomes natural. And that's all it is.
So it's communicating with yourself,
Yeah.
like understanding yourself,
100%.
accepting yourself,
100%.
and seeing where your mind's at.
And when you know where you are, and this is another good thing that comes from it, when you know where you are within yourself, you can actually make a difference. If you tell yourself that you're a superstar and that you're building an empire when really you're fucking working at a bar and you're just telling yourself some story that makes you feel better about yourself, you're never going to get anywhere. You're just going to be constantly disappointed in yourself. And the good thing about the thing that I loved about meditating is it requires you to become honest with yourself, because you're like, okay, well, I'm full of anxiety, I'm angry, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all these things. What can I do about those things now so that they no longer inhibit me from going and doing what I actually want to be doing and being the person that I want to be and being the friend or the kid or whatever the fuck it is that you want to be? you need to free yourself from the shit inside you that's stopping you, because there's nothing else stopping you.
Right. And after all, it's just you.
Yeah,
And
it's just you.
Yeah.
There's no one standing guard stopping you from doing anything.
Yeah.
And we constantly make up reasons as to why we aren't where we want to be, but ultimately it's really just you.
Do you think we're more like that because of like how our society tended to be like more capitalistic and always about work and always about being busy and stuff like that?
Yeah.
That we don't really have time for us to, or has it always been like that?
I have no idea. I mean, like, it could, I think people keep busy because they, also subconsciously don't want to look at what they're doing. Like, there's all ways of all different ways to distract yourself.
Now it's saying work, time is money. If you're not working, you're not contributing to economy and not making any money for yourself. So it's
Exactly.
kind of like always have to be busy and
Yeah, it's all
has
about
consequences.
it's all about achieving stuff.
yeah.
And like, ironically, you can achieve a lot more when you know how to be quiet.
Yeah.
And you might not even, like, what I've found with me, like, I used to have all these big fucking grandiose, like, visions of what I was going to be and shit. Now for me, I mean, I want to start a little building company and make houses and stuff, but I'm not trying to fulfill myself through it. So I don't need these giant ass dreams where I'm a fucking sick cunt that everyone wants to give a blowjob to when I'm walking down the street.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't need that anymore. It used to be like, yeah, I want everybody to fucking validate me. I want to be the sick cunt that fucking can pay for shit. And I just don't care anymore. It doesn't matter, because I already know what I am and who I am, and I just feel good. So you end up just participating in things that you want to participate in. You're not participating in it because you think you're going to find yourself in it. Like, you go to a weightlifting competition or whatever, and you're just going to go, okay, hey everyone, like, you're going to have fun with everybody, and you're going to fucking try and win. There's nothing wrong with competing and having fun. It's just, like, you're no longer thinking, well, when I win this, I'm going to be fucking...
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And that's all it comes down to.
Yeah, when you attach your ego to your to you
the
winning
outcomes.
it, then you're done, really.
Yeah. I mean, people...
Setting it up like disappointment for yourself. pretty
100%.
much.
Like, you're just setting yourself up to just suffer.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if you win, then it's like, oh, how do I keep the top spot? Like, you can't...
Yeah.
You can do everything that you want to do and be at peace. It's not, they're not mutually exclusive things.
Yeah, definitely competing, and I know that you got your competing side in you already from you being an athlete and stuff, but it's something that I'm learning by the day, being an athlete and being able to control my expectations and outcomes and how I think about those outcomes. It's a new stimulus for
sure.
me.
Yeah, it's hard, man. But the thing is that if you're moving toward it, that's all that matters. So,
Yeah.
like, you never, not necessarily never, but you have to, if there's a wall there, it's come up because it's still inside you. So it means that you just need to work on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't expect to just be like, hey, and just walk through, just going, yeah, fucking whatever, I don't care. Like, you're going to come up against it, but if you know that it's not, that it's stupid, then you just kind of dismantle it, and then the next time you go, you'll be like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
That's how I know, what I notice with me is it'll come up really gnarly, and I'll go, okay, well, I didn't know that was there, but okay, it's there.
Yeah.
And then I'll deal with it, let it go, process the shit, and then the next time I, participate in something that's the same that usually would bring it back, it just goes away.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of working through it.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
One step at a time, right?
One step at a time, dude.
Well, we gotta wrap
Yeah.
this up pretty soon, but what are some other books that you can recommend to?
Okay,
Like you said, the two.
Yeah,
the Buddha book and
The Power of Now.
Power of Now.
Power of Now is really, really great. There's another one called A New Earth. There's a Dalai Lama Art of Happiness. The Jordan Peterson book.
Oh, you
That actually helped me quite a lot when I was fucking going
7
through
Rules for Life?
it. Yeah, 12. Yeah, is it 12?
12
Yeah,
Rules for Life.
Yeah, 12 Rules for Life. That shit helped me when I was really fucking going through it.
What? I want that book.
Yeah, I got it. You
Do
can
you
have
have
it if you want
Can
it.
I?
Yeah, of course.
I've been wanting to get my hands on that.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got it at home.
Oh,
Next time you're up in Tokyo, you can come grab it. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you in the mail.
I should have known. Oh,
I'll mail it to
come
you.
get it.
I'll send it to you. But yes,
Oh, next week, mate.
Yeah,
Next weekend, yeah.
absolutely. 12 Rules for Life. Fuck, what else? A New Earth,
David Goggins.
Power of Now, David Goggins. That shit's sick. 12 Rules for Life. Writing down your day.
Yeah.
Journaling. I mean, it's not a book, but it's one that you write. And if your aim is toward being happy, just write down all the things that you did that made you unhappy, and then understand it, because I think that really, really makes a difference. Understanding, like, just critique your day. I used to do that. You just critique your day.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I used to read it in the morning, and then get up and get into it. And yes, set some goals if you're feeling like you're not disciplined and like you're like, well, you're always gonna have a mind that wants to do easy shit, right? But like, if you're really out of control, just set some goals and do them so that you can have that confidence that you can actually do what it is that you want to do. And fucking learn to meditate. That's got to be the biggest one. The thing with meditation though is that at the start, it doesn't do much. It takes time. It's like learning to be a chess master. Like, it's a lifelong thing that you can do. But if you do it and you commit yourself to it, you won't regret it. I can tell you that much.
And also with I don't want to start another conversation, but with self-help books, I feel like, okay, they help.
Yeah.
But attaching yourself too much to, because it tells you that you're okay with being you.
Yeah.
And if you're like always attaching yourself to that kind of notion, like we talked about it earlier on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a piece of shit. But I'm okay because Gary Vee tells me that I'm okay. Or Jordan Peterson tells me that I'm okay.
Yeah.
Then you just like stay at being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So I think don't you think like too many self-help stimulus could potentially be dangerous?
Of course, like, I mean, people, and then you get involved in the David Goggins book and you go, I will never fucking surrender ever again to anything again.
I could never do that for a long time.
You know, you see people doing it. I think the most important thing is to just make sure that you be observant of the lessons you learnt by participating in it, and don't think that it's the holy grail that's going to fucking save you forever, right?
Right.
Those dudes did that. It works for them. That's great. And it's fucking super cool that they spent the time to write a book that's going to help other people. You're not necessarily them. Do what they say. Push it to the limit. Take the lessons that you learn from it and then build on it for however you work, right? Don't feel like shit because you stop running 15 kilometers a day, you know? But also, if you're being lazy, stop being lazy. You know what I mean? It's about just finding the truth, being honest.
Yeah, you're you.
And you're you, and be you, and find out the best way to be you, and don't fall back into negative shit that's going to fuck your life up.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. It was Harrison Green. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yay! Okay, there we go. Thank you.